Welcome to the first episode of the Inspirationals, a show that is gonna tell inspiring stories of athletes and people in the sports industry. Today, my guest in the first episode is a four-time Olympian, three-time Winter Olympian, and one-time Summer Olympian, Chirine Njeim from Lebanon. Hi, Chirine.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. We're gonna start by watching videos of you when you were little, and then we're gonna start like our conversation.
Sounds good.
So this was in Lebanon, right?
Actually, this was in France when I used to do summer
Oh,
camps, and I used to train in Val d'Isère or Tignes in the summer, so I can get some training in. And yeah, I remember those days very clearly.
so you started your journey in skiing. You were only 3 years old.
Correct. So I started training. Well, I shouldn't say training. I started skiing in Lebanon at that age. My dad was the person who taught me how to ski. My parents always been very much into skiing, and so I started in Lebanon, and then my love for the sport just grew as I get older, and I really wanted to do it, and so my parents supported that idea and decided to send me to France where I can get good quality training there and also keep my studies going. So that's how it all started.
So, so yeah, if we can play the video of the birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Those are some very vivid memories. It was my dad's birthday.
And you were away, right?
Yes, I was away in France at that time, and we were at a ski camp, and my mom was there with me. I think actually that was probably the last month she was with me before she left me to go back home, and so that was
Yeah,
the
we can
beginning
hear
of
about
it.
this.
The nice little short haircut.
Okay. So, Shireen, you started skiing at a very young age in Lebanon, and then, from what I know, the coach spotted your talent. It was a French coach, if I'm not mistaken, and told your parents to like they should push you to really go to the Olympics one day and pursue this as a career. So after this, we see the picture with your parents. They were the number one supporters since day one, and I know, in fact, that I still support you. Can
Thank you.
you tell us how their impact on your career started and how it continued up until now?
Yes. So, I mean, I could never thank my parents for everything they've done. And because of them, I think I am where I am today. They truly have pushed me to kind of push my limits and not be afraid to try new things. And growing up as a child, I mean, my dad was always, pushing us to go skiing. Same with my mom. She was always, into skiing and sports in the summer. They always played tennis. And so, yeah, when I was younger, I started skiing, and there was one of the coaches there that noticed me, and he told my family, was like, I think this girl could have potentials if she actually has good quality training. So I decided, for me at that age, I didn't know any better. I just thought how cool it is to travel, and train abroad. I mean, I was 12 at that time, so of course, I just didn't making a decision at that age wasn't something I was thinking about. Um, so my parents thought it was a good idea if I actually go to France and pursue the career of ski racing. And so my mom, you know, my mom's like, okay, pack your bag. I'll go with you the first month. We'll see how it is. And if you like it, we'll stay. And of course, I loved it. My mom was there. It was great. We were out skiing and, you know, going to school, trying to look at schools around the area. And of course, I loved everything about it because it was something new. But I think it really hit me when my mom went back to Lebanon and I was just by myself. I'm like, now what? What do I do? And, but you know, I still remember calling my mom because we didn't have, you know, WhatsApp or Viber or all of those things. So I remember buying a phone, you know, card and calling my mom and using the whole entire card. And every time I cry, I'm like, Mom, I just want to come home. Like, this is so hard for me. I miss you guys. And, you know, I was hoping that she would say to me, like, no, it's okay. Stay with it. Like, push yourself. She always said to me, okay, come back. And I think this like reverse psychology really made me kind
Yeah.
of overthink it. I'm like, why is she making it sound so easy? Like, if I don't want to be there, I can come home. And so that pushed me to stay longer and longer. And I think that's how it just kind of went from one day to another.
She told me a story the other day about you when you used to go to school, and the other parents and teachers used to tell her like if you have a competition, for example, you used to skip school, and she wasn't like other parents, especially in Lebanon, focusing more on the education rather than sports. So she used to tell you, for example, tell the other parents and the teacher, study will come later, so it's fine, she can do that. And she also
Absolutely.
told me a story of you missing for 2 weeks and then coming back to school and studying, not going out for break. Do you remember this part?
Yes, I do
To
remember
catch
that.
up
Yes,
your studies?
yes, yes, yes. They were just,
So,
I think my mom, yeah, she was just always like, you know, you can always study for the rest of your life. You're always learning. You're
yeah.
always, you know, but you can't do sports for too long. You know, obviously you can exercise, but you can't competitively do it. So she really pushed me to just go for it and the rest will come. So
Yeah. She was definitely different in the mindset compared to other parents, especially at that time. Um, uh, Shireen, you went to France at the age of 12 or 13
correct.
to compete, and you lived with your coach family, that's right? Can you tell us about the transition from France to the US, which was even harder on you as a kid because you had to bear responsibilities at a very, very young age and focus, like take this path, which is different from everyone's.
Yeah, I mean, it was being in France, first of all, was hard for me because I had to make new friends. I had to learn the culture because, as you know, like it's always different. It's the food, the culture, everything about it is different. And so I had to learn that, and that took me a while. And so when I heard that I'll be going to the US, I was excited, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to start all over again. Especially then, I was very much French educated now. So having to speak the language was just not, you know, everything about it was just hard. But I knew the Olympics were going to happen in Salt Lake City, so I thought it was a great idea for me to come to the US and train on the hill where the Olympics were going to happen. So to me, like that was exciting. And of course, having a change in life is always exciting. No matter what it is, it's always a new adventure, a new start. So in my mind, that was something like exciting, but I also knew I was even going to be farther away from home, which really like tortured me. But you know, I think I didn't realize that I was what France did to me. It really like built me as a person, and you know, I was much more confident when I came to the US.
What were you saying to yourself to keep up with this? Like, were you reminding yourself of your goal or target to keep going? Because for a young person and going through these changes, it's not easy, especially mentally. And and
Yeah,
you have to focus on your your training at the same time.
yeah, absolutely. I think at that time, honestly, I wasn't thinking much. I knew that I had a goal, and it was to go to the Olympics, and so that kept me going. And I think, as you said, like having the support of my family, that absolutely kept me going. Um, every time that I felt homesick or I wanted to go home, my parents made it sound like it's not a big deal. I can come home whenever I wanted to. It's not like I'm forced to be in the US or anywhere else. So for me, that just kind of, I kept that in the back of my mind. And, you know, I knew all the works that I've done in France, and the Olympics were coming, you know, they were close to, you know, happening. And so I didn't want to give that away. And just kept fighting for it and just kept going. So, and I'm very usually
No,
a person
no,
who,
how? Yeah,
go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm
no, no,
usually a
go
person
ahead.
who sets a goal. If I set a goal, I'm very, um, I stay on that target until I get it. You know, I try not to kind of, unless injuries happen, but I'm usually very focused on it. So, but yeah.
It's part of your character. um, Shireen, can you tell us more about the preparation for Salt Lake City in 2002 as a college student preparing for the games? How was the preparation for someone who like went to a professional, if you want, environment to prepare for these games, especially in alpine skiing?
Yeah. So the first year I was still in 2002, so I was still in high school. So that Olympics was, you know, approaching very quickly. It was kind of like this unreal thing that is happening, and I was already in Salt Lake City training on the slopes. I mean, a lot has happened. And the preparation for it was definitely different. I mean, it's hours and days. Every day you're out there training. Every day, you know, I go skiing in the morning, and then the afternoon I come back, and then I do my studies. And there's definitely days where I was too tired to stay awake to finish my homework or do anything like that. But you know, you almost you put that expectation on yourself, like this is what I need to do, and so, you know, I just have to do it. I just have to put my head down and get it done, because, you know, if you get behind on your studies, and you have to take a day off so you can catch up, and all of those things. So, um, so I think I got in the routine of doing things, you know, just get up in the morning, go to school, go skiing, come back. And yeah, so that's how I just kind of, it became part of my life. Like I didn't know anything different. So that was what I did every day.
Yeah, it's the price to pay if you want, or the sacrifice to do for the Olympics, basically. So
Absolutely.
you were aware of this beforehand. Shireen, you told me in a previous interview, especially I think before Salt Lake City, that you suffered from anorexia. Can you tell us more about it, how it happened, how you were able to overcome this obstacle, especially as athletes? And we know that a lot of athletes suffer from it and they don't speak about it, you know, especially long distance runners or people who have this pressure of their coaches also to lose weight. So can you tell us more about this experience?
Yeah, so anorexia, I feel like in ski racing, it's something that maybe you rarely hear about it, because we're not a very much, you know, a cardio, I would say. We're more all about power and being strong and being big. And, you know, that's all what ski racing is. So um, it was hard to get in that phase. But I think what led me to be there was, um, before the Olympics, I was doing my last training in Mount Hood, Oregon, in a summer camp, and I injured my knee. So I had, unfortunately, an ACL surgery on my knee. And I think that was the beginning of everything that led me to anorexia. It went from there. I recovered. So it was a big setback for me. I recovered from it, came back, and then unfortunately I had pneumonia, which was, you know, both my lungs were affected. I couldn't. It's crazy to think about it, because I couldn't do like 5 steps without having to sit down and catch my breath again. So, and I was alone, you know, my parents were at home. They would call me like, how are you doing? And I was always like, I'm fine, you know, I'm going to be okay. Even so I was in the hospital, like thinking, I don't even know if I'm going to make it. You know, I had like tubes in my back to drain all the fluids. It was just not a good time for me. So coming back, when I started to feel better, I told myself, I'm going to come back stronger than ever. And I'm going to train as hard and eat clean. And I think my mindset being so all in, that led me to anorexia, because my whole idea of eating clean and just getting stronger just became me just
Extreme.
maybe a little bit, you know, depressed or frustrated, or just very like, it's all in, like I got to do this. And I found myself that I was anorexic, and I just was cutting food and was not eating, and that was probably the hardest thing I had to overcome. So because it's not like an injury where you wait and with time it gets better. It's something that it's very mental. It's very, if you're not willing to change, it could stay with you forever for the rest of your life. So for me, it was just, it lasted for a year, thankfully. But just looking back at that year, it was just, I mean, the things that I've done, it's amazing. It's, I don't even know what I was thinking. It's almost like a year of, I wasted my time almost, because you're not yourself, you're someone else. And everything, when people tell you, hey, you know, you look great, like, or they tell you, you look very really skinny, you need to gain weight, and you only think, oh my gosh, everybody's jealous of me because I look so skinny. But you know, you just turn everything into everybody's your enemy. And that was really hard for me to overcome, for sure.
And this happened before Salt Lake City, before you qualified for your first Winter Olympics, right?
Correct.
And how were you able to manage your return, if you want, from anorexia, pneumonia, and the ACL injury to do your first Olympics and qualify?
So yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy. I think the idea of me not be able to run the Olympics, also what, like, and my injuries and having setbacks really led me to, you know, being anorexic. I think it was kind of like my outlets of, I'm in control. So I think it was, I remember clearly. So my mom came that year to the US, and she stayed with me. And I mean, I was, you know, every time I eat lunch or I eat dinner, I'm like sitting there with my mom, and she's like, okay, are you eating everything? I mean, you feel like you're a child again. Everybody's watching what you're eating. And so she came here, which helped a lot, because, you know, she was supporting me in that way, because I think I would have gone definitely like farther than I did. And I remember coming home to Lebanon and going to see my best friend, because I did see a lot of psychologists and people to help me out, but personally it didn't help me. I just felt like I was always in that bubble that I couldn't get out. I was always this little thing in my head that was telling me not to eat, and I just couldn't overcome it. And I went home to Lebanon, and one of my friends, I knocked on her door to surprise her, and she looked at me and she's like, who is this? I'm like, it's Chirine. And she's like, she literally started crying. She's like, I don't even recognize you. You look so much older and so skinny. Like, I just don't even know who you are. And I think that's when it kind of hit me. And also being surrounded that summer with my whole entire family, it was kind of like a comfort for me. And I was able to thankfully bounce back from anorexia. That okay.
Yeah, this reminds us how important our entourage is, especially at elite level. So, because of this pressure and this ultimate focus that we go through, sometimes, yeah, we forgot about the other things, and our entourage is there to remind us to stay healthy and not really take it too seriously at some point. Chirine, can you take us through your journey at Salt Lake City, the Olympics? How was your first experience as like achieving your dream, basically, of competing at the Olympics?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, making it, finishing like the story from being anorexic and getting there was just, to me, that was a huge compliment. I still wasn't at my best at that time. I definitely was
coming back from all
coming
these
back.
stuff.
I mean, they definitely gave me the heads up, like, if you don't get at a certain weight, we don't think you'll be able to race. And I think, to me, that was just like, get to a certain weight so I can race. I've worked so hard for that. And once I was there, I mean, I keep telling people, they keep asking me what it is to be at the Olympics. And the word that they say, living the dream, it truly is, especially the first time I was there. I just felt like you have 2 weeks of just living such an amazing experience, being surrounded by athletes that are same mind, same thinking, the same way, wanting to do the same thing. And it was just like literally amazing. I could not believe. I remember sitting at the start of the race, and I was about to start, and there was like a camera that came over, from the where you stand to the start, and I was like, oh my gosh, where do I look? I'm like, this is what's going on. But also, like, the crowd at the bottom is, what makes it such an amazing experience. You hear everyone cheering for you as you get down, and it's such a cool feeling. It's something that if anybody experiences, it's like, wow.
Coming back from the Olympics, you were saying that living a dream and everything, and it was that exceptional. What about the Olympic blues that athletes mention often? After the Olympics, some people go through depression, and recently, The Weight of Gold was released, a documentary raising awareness about these issues. Like, you've achieved the Olympics or you've won gold, and then what's next? Did you have this moment where you thought, I did it, and now what's next?
Absolutely. It's actually, I'm glad you asked that question, because at first I didn't know if that was normal, but you almost feel like it's like, it's like this sadness, you almost like lost, like, I worked so hard for this and now it's gone, and now what do I do? What's next for me? And I definitely felt that feeling after the Olympics, because you just don't know what to do with yourself. You don't know if this is normal. You don't know what people expect you to do now, and can you do this again? And because you remember of all the hard work that you've went through for the past, years, 4 years to get there. And it's like,
Lifetime.
what do I do now? Sorry?
A lifetime.
Yes, it is. So it's very depressing, and it's actually interesting because even, it's not just the Olympics. I feel like I get that feeling also after racing a marathon now, which is very interesting, because I think we work so hard for 3-4 months leading to the marathon. So when the marathon's done, the first week of the marathon, instead of like, I mean, you're enjoying the moment of what just happened, but at the same time, you get this like sad feeling of what is next for me. And I think this happens usually after such a big event. You get that feeling of just emptiness.
True.
But my advice is just to kind of let it ride, let it pass, and it will get better, and things will figure itself out. It's definitely a true thing. So.
Yeah. So we're gonna get back to the marathon and the switch later on, but just before switching, you also qualified for the next two Winter Olympics in 2006 and 2010. So what kept you going after this period of blues or sadness you were talking about? What triggered to this comeback and come back again for Vancouver 2010?
Yeah. It's funny because like after I had my setback, I had a huge setbacks before the first Olympics, my 3 injuries leading to it. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this a better experience for me moving forward. I'm going to try to stay healthier and just get stronger. And I think you look back at the things from the Olympics of what you can change and what you can do differently. And I think that kept me motivated to continue because I wanted to improve myself. I knew there was something, you just know that there's something inside of you that could be better. You know that there's this other, I don't know, push in you. And so for me, that kept me going to just do the next Olympics. And I was at that time started, I knew more people in Salt Lake City. I was accepted to the University of Utah, so I was surrounded by a lot of athletes there that were competing, and so that kept me motivated to just keep going for my goal.
So your entourage at that time was top athletes or Olympians competing at the Olympics. So when you go to the Olympics, did you meet, for example, people who used to inspire you and who used to inspire you as a kid? Because we all have this role model athlete or someone we look up to. And were you able to meet this person in 3 Olympics or not?
Yes, I did. I mean, it's funny because I feel like when people are at the Olympics, they're more, they're just like, oh yeah, we know each other. Everybody's kind of being normal. My friend and I were like, oh my gosh, just look who it is. Let's go take a picture. And so we did that a lot, which is great. We took pictures with Bodie Miller and Lindsey Vonn and things like that. But I think for me, my idol as growing up was Alberto Tomba. I don't know why. I just loved his style of skiing. I loved how he was just so strong, and I related so well to him. So to me, he was my inspirational growing up. I just I would watch him on TV, and then I would go to the ski hill and try to ski like him, which probably was not the best thing to do because he always skied in the back seat. But that was the only way. He was just my idol when I was growing up. So he definitely wasn't there for my second Olympics. I don't know if he was at the first Olympics actually, but he was someone that I've always watched growing up on TV. So I was always like, I want to be Alberto Tomba.
Chirine competing in the Winter Olympics and then shifting to the marathon. Like the shift happened with your husband, Ronnie. And I don't want to skip Ronnie's part, but can you tell us how you met and because you were living in the US and you were away from your parents, was Ronnie, your husband, your source of support and who kept you going through the 3 Winter Olympics?
Yeah, so very interesting story. Ronnie and I met on an airplane. It was my last year in college. So I was leaving Lebanon to go back to the States, to Salt Lake City. And sure enough, Ronnie and I sat next to each other for 12 hours. And we got to know each other. And his background, so he's born in the US. His mom and dad are Lebanese. So yeah, we met and then we kind of separated our own ways. I was in Salt Lake City at that time. He was living in Chicago. And so I think that was why I transitioned to Chicago, because of him. So my last year after I graduated, we kind of kept in touch through phone calls and everything. And I never, my whole entire life from traveling, never sat next to someone where I thought I would marry. But Ronnie was just kind of this guy who was very interested to listen to my story, and we felt like a connection, especially that he had a background, being his parents being Lebanese and things like that. And so, yeah, so we connected there. And then after I graduated from the University of Utah, he said to me, would you want to come to Chicago? And that way we're closer to each other. And I thought about it a little bit because I've always been a person who lived in the mountains, surrounded by mountains. So I was like, okay, maybe this is the time to change and surround, I will have skyscrapers now. It's not going to be mountains. It's going to be flat road. But also at that time, after, you know, all those years, the three Olympics, I was ready for a change. Almost, I
Mm.
wanted to be this like normal person who exercise whenever I feel like it. I didn't think I had anything else in me. Running was definitely not something that I looked at, like something that I was interested in. So yeah, so moved to Chicago with Ronnie, and I think like the first year I was just looking for jobs, and I was like getting to know the city, so I was walking around a lot, and then I'd see a lot of people running and biking, and I'm like, yeah, I think I like this. I'm like, I can get faster to places if I run. So I started actually doing that. I would go to check out like different part of Chicago. Instead of walking, I would run, and then I'll check out the area, and then I'll run to another area. And slowly I was like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this. And so for me, I felt like there was this, I, as an athlete, you always feel like there's this competitiveness in you. You know, you want to do something that is challenging. Um, and so I was a little bit bored of doing something like that. So I decided to run the Chicago Marathon. And I told Ronnie, I'm like, hey, what do you think of this idea? It will be this thing that you and I will do, and we can just say we've done a marathon. It's a one time thing, not like a whole time thing.
A
And he's like,
checklist.
okay, that sounds like a good idea. You know, it's kind of like when you have a list and you scratch off
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
and yeah, so he's like, that's a great idea. And I thought, you know, I started looking in books and reading in magazines, like how to train for a marathon, because I didn't have a coach then or anything. And I heard like, oh, maybe you have to do one like long runs and couple like, you know, runs here and there. And we didn't run that much. I think I did like few 20-mile runs. So I think that's like 30K runs maybe. Um, and so we did a few runs like that, but otherwise just kind of kept it very cool, you know, thinking that him and I were gonna run it together. It's gonna be nice and easy. And we ran our first marathon in 2012. And Ronnie, I remember her finishing and looking at me and said, I don't know if I'll ever do this again. And me on the other side, I was like, this is so much fun. I want to do it again. I'm like, I have to
and
do it again. And
and you
just
did your first marathon in 3 hours 7 minutes, right?
correct. Yes, 3 hours. And
So and in Lebanon they were like fighting to go under 3 minutes and 3 hours, and I remember maybe at that time the record was 3 hours zero flat.
correct. Yes,
so so you were only 7 minutes away, and it was your first ever marathon.
correct. Yeah. I think my strength from ski racing really helped
Mm,
me kind of pull through the course. I had no cardio. As you know, being a ski racer, it's not about cardio. Um, so I just really like enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed it. And I think because it was so painful, and it's just like you feel empty when you're done, but you also feel so accomplished.
true.
I just loved that mixed feeling at the finish. Like you just don't know what to do with yourself. And
Did you have
yeah,
the same feeling when you used to do alpine skiing?
you know, in alpine skiing, I don't think you get that feeling so much because you know you can do it again. You know, the next
Mm,
weekend you'll have another race. You know you'll have a chance coming up. And I think the marathon, you prepare so much for it that, you know, in 3 months you can do one marathon. You obviously can't do
true.
like back-to-back marathons. And so when you do one and you really enjoy it, you know, you're like, I want to do it again. Like I need to do this again. And so I definitely had that feeling after that marathon. And yeah, and I started being in Chicago. I thought, okay, there's a lot of running groups, so maybe I can join some groups here and there.
Mm,
And they do a few workouts. And I was still not thinking this is going to be,
seriously.
I was definitely not thinking I'm going to the Olympics, like not at all. Like I just thought this is fun. My sister was, you know, was starting to run as well and doing marathons. I would ask her like, hey, what should I do? You know, you think I should do this and that? And so she would help me a little bit here and there. But for me, I just joined groups and I thought, wow, this is a great idea for me to meet people. And I started meeting, you know, other runners, and I hear what they have to say, start to learn a lot about the sport. And, you know, from there, I just kept doing the Chicago Marathon year after year.
Yes, and that's how you qualified for Rio, for the Summer Olympics, by
Yeah,
running
actually,
Chicago Marathon.
that was another. It's another story, like qualifying to the Summer Olympics, because I did that year. I did the Chicago Marathon. I was still a 3-hour marathoner. I ran Chicago in October, and I remember my time was like 2:46. That was like a big jump from me, coming from 3:01 to 2:46. And then right away, I was still riding this like wave of just like excitement. So I went to Lebanon and I ran the
Yes.
Beirut Marathon in November that same year, and I ran 2:48. And I remember telling myself, oh my God, I'm officially a 2-hour, you know, 40-ish some marathoner. Because when you break it the first time, you almost have to do another one to assure yourself that you
True.
belong in that 2 hours. So did Beirut Marathon, felt so great about it. And then I had a coach at that time, and he said to me, like, enough, like, no more. This is back to back 2 marathons, like, not healthy. You're gonna get injured. From the plane coming from Lebanon to back to the States, I remember sending an email to my coach saying to him, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I want to do Houston Marathon in January. And he was not okay with that idea. I mean, everyone that I was asking them, they said, Chirine, you just did Lebanon. You were so excited about it. Like, doing a third marathon and also trying to run a sub 2:45 is just not possible. Like, you're going crazy. Like, you're going to be tired. How's your training going to be? But I was so set on doing Houston Marathon and running a sub 2:45 because I knew that was my last chance to qualify for the Rio Olympics. And I always say to myself, against all odds, I set my mind to do something. And to this day, I always remind myself how amazing it is to, like, when you think you want something and you really, really want it so bad, that you will get it. You know, your mental is so strong. That can get you there. And sure enough, I went to Houston and ran 2:44.
44. Yeah. And this was the qualifying time for Rio. Shireen, you were training at that time with Ryan Hall, or was it like a later transition?
Yeah, that was a later transition. At that time, I was training with a coach in Arizona, which was online coaching. And then, yeah. So, yeah, I know. He would send me my workouts, and I just do it here by myself. And everybody asked me, like, how do you do
So
this
you
by yourself?
qualified, you qualified to the Olympics by online coaching. In other words, okay. How was the Summer Olympics compared to the Winter Olympics? And here we have a few pictures to show from the Rio Olympics. Yeah, what was the difference? Especially that you've already competed 3 times, so you get used to it somehow. The summer was different, right?
Yes, very much so. Honestly, I kind of loved it a lot because traveling there felt like you're going on vacation. You know, you're packing like your pair of shoes,
Light.
all your summer clothes, your flip flops. Like, I was trying to tell myself I'm actually going to Olympics when it was hard to like really think about that because I was just so excited about, you know, being there in the summertime. But you don't have to like take all your skis, your poles, your helmet. Like, that's just a lot to carry. And but the Summer Olympics were a lot of fun. I mean, even the opening ceremony where you just nice weather, you're just enjoying it. Like, I loved everything about it except for that picture. I think I was dying because it was so hot.
Yeah, it was extreme. Yeah, you were talking about how the weather was nice, but during the marathon that day, and I was there, so I remember warm it was, and athletes were collapsing, and a lot of marathon runners collapsed during that race. Can you take us through the race briefly? How was it, especially knowing that people were literally collapsing next to you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was probably one of the hardest marathons I've ever done in my life. It was not the fastest. It was the hardest because of the heat. I literally remember running on the course because I didn't have a lot of bottles on the course. I actually didn't have any bottles on the course because I didn't know any better, and I was just using the water provided on the course. But I remember running with others next to me and just watching them just collapse, like legit collapse next to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really, really bad. I was starting to get a little bit dehydrated. I could tell that because I was seeing like black spots. And I knew I was just so dehydrated. The fact that there was one point where we go around and there was like a fountain, and I definitely had the idea. I was like, every part of me just wanted to stop and just sit in there. But I was like, that would not be a good look if I actually do that. But it was just, my mind was there. My mind was like, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to stop and just sit in that water for a little bit. It was extremely, extremely, extremely hot. And I'm just thankful that I was able to finish because, just having the name Lebanon on the finish line, it was important to
Yeah,
me. So I wanted
definitely.
to make sure that was gonna happen. So, but it was not a pretty course. After the race was done, as you saw in that picture, I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think I can move. I am just
But
so.
but even after this Olympic experience, you were even more hungry to to actually go for another Olympics, and you were training for the Tokyo Olympics. Can you tell us more about your transition with Coach Ryan Hall, who's also an Olympian and marathon runner, and your 2:30, 6:40, the national record that you did this year, because you were targeting Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, so I always look at it this way. When you have bad experiences, you always know that you can have a better race if you have a good experience. You always learn, and the
Mm.
learning things like having water on the course, like training and doing things differently, is what pushes me to do another Olympics because I know I can do better. Like if I get to a point where I'm like, this is it, then I'm the only one that knows that. But then there's always this part that I knew after Rio, like I can do better. I can do better than this. So
And you
I
did.
continued training in Chicago. The last few years after the Olympics. Unfortunately, it's been a lot of like ups and downs. I've had some good and some bad races, but my marathon just been kind of not so great. I think like just kind of like maintaining. I had one PR. Obviously, I ran 2:39, but then it just kind of like plateaued a little bit, and that's when one of my friends, his name is Mo. He was like, "Hey, you should come and train with me and Ryan." And I'm like, "No way, Ryan will coach me." I'm like, "Doesn't he just coach like pro athletes? Like, I don't know if I could do this." um, but he's like, "You should talk to him." And we had a conversation. We probably talked for like an hour and a half over the phone, and I just connected so well with Ryan. He was so positive and really kind of pushed me. It was like, you could do this, and as you know, his wife is 38 years old right now, and she's still kind of dominating in the 10K to the marathon. Like, she's just amazing. And so I believed in what he said, and he said, okay, come to Arizona, Flagstaff, and then train with me for a couple months and see what you can do. And training with him was nothing like I've done before, in ways that he pushed me where, some days when I'm working out by myself and I don't feel great, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just, take
Mm.
it easy right now. It's the effort is there. But with Ryan, it's the effort, you show up, that's great, but then you put in the work. And I think he challenged me a lot, which I really enjoyed that. He pushed me to a different level, and I think that's why it helped me to kind of get that fire back inside me, because it was kind of like dying a little bit. I was just feeling hopeless. Oh, I haven't PR'd for so long, and I think that change going with him and challenging me to push myself really, really helped me to PR in that last marathon that I've done, and it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah. In the difference between alpine skiing and the marathon is basically the race is so fast in alpine skiing, and downhill. You used to also do like downhill, which is very risky as well. And marathon is 2 hours, 30 minutes of thought and thinking. How were you able to transition between the two, and what goes through your mind in the 2 hours of the marathon?
yeah, so we at training we do it so much. So we train for a marathon. So every weekend or every other weekend, my runs are like 2 hour longs, 2.5 hour long. So I practice to do that, and what helps in the marathon, obviously not my last marathon because it was not a lot of people cheering, but the people on the course really helps. People cheering really helps you kind of get going, get moving. But I think the way I look at it is I think of the course as like, okay, the first 6 miles, once that's done, then there's the next 6 miles. So I kind of break down the race so it doesn't feel like it's so long. And I think that helps me kind of go through the course. But I'm trying to think what I think about. I usually, I don't know, I usually think about when is the next water station. I think about should I take my gel before and then drink the water? Like I think about random things like that. I try not to think much about my body because once after the 3 miles, I kind of click in and just kind of zone out. And so I let my body just do its thing, but I don't really try to focus on, oh, like my foot hurt or, oh, my knee doesn't. I try not to think about that. So I just think more outside. I look at the miles ahead. I look at the people ahead. But yeah, I just try to block everything else. But I think, yeah, it's just you practice it so much that it becomes a natural thing.
Chirine, after your PR and your final marathon race, knowing that it happened also after the COVID and after stopping for 1 year, so I forgot to mention that you also did like the half marathon, and you broke also the half marathon, then broke the marathon record. You came back to Lebanon instead of going for a second chance to qualify for the Olympics. You came back to Lebanon to run the 10K race of the Beirut Marathon. And you know how the Lebanese here are always looking up to you, and oh, Chirine is running, and and cheering for you. How is, like, why do you come back to compete in Lebanon? How is it different from the races in Chicago or other parts of the world?
Yeah. I always look at it this way. I race for the Olympics to represent Lebanon. I'm there for my country, and like with everything that has happened to Lebanon, when I received that call, like, hey, there's a 10K in Lebanon, May called me, and I was like, I will be there. Like, I will not hesitate, but I will be there. And I think to me, that's a great picture taken by you, which I love. I had no hesitation. And it's been so long because we didn't do the Beirut Marathon last year. And I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to be there for everyone. Just kind of bring that hope and like, don't give up. Like, just get up and like, let's do this again, And to me, it means more, it means a lot to me. If I make it to the Olympics, it's great. If I don't, then it is what it is. I gave it my all, and I got to do and run with my sister and enjoy this race with everyone in Lebanon. So to me, that really meant a lot. So, and everybody's like, oh, you should go and just kind of run it easy. And I just can't do that. When I'm racing, I'm all in. So.
And I wanted to bring up this picture and seeing you waiting for your sister to arrive in second place. And we should note that Nasreen is the second best marathon runner in Lebanon. So how is it between you two? I know that you both support each other, but how is it when you compete against each other?
Oh, when we compete, I mean, she's just like everyone else that I compete against. You know, everybody's like, oh, you know, it's your sister, like whatever, or you guys are sister, take it easy. And I think it's just who we are. Once we're racing, like we're best friends when we're off the, you know, the running race, but when we're racing, we're just trying to compete with each other, trying to see who can make it the best. And so it's kind of fun to have her there. It's been so long since we raced together, especially at a shorter distance. So having to do that with her was actually a lot of fun. And I was telling her, as I remember, like the first 2 miles of the race for the 10K, I kept hearing people cheering for her, and I'm like, she's still behind me. I'm like, she's still following. So it's kind of cool to see her, like to have that. She pushed me to run a little bit faster, you know. So it was really neat to have her and to be there in Beirut after everything that has happened. So that was just amazing.
Yeah, and she was also in Rio. I remember seeing her in Rio and supporting you through the finish line.
Yep.
Chirine, we have a little surprise for you. It's it's from your support system.
Oh
So
Hi, Christel.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Chirine. Happy to join you.
Hi, Mom.
Just coming back from my hike today, and want to tell you, Chirine, miss you already, and I'm so proud of you. You are such wonderful athlete, not only because of your achievement, but your behavior also. You are calm, hard worker. Always you aim for the best. So me too. I wish you the best always. Keep going. I'm so proud. Love you.
Love you, Mom.
so this was a video that she sent, and actually I contacted her on the day of her birthday. So her birthday
Oh,
was
that's so
a
funny.
few days. So happy birthday to her, and I know how she supports you and still does, both of you, you and Nasreen. And to finish it off, I want to know your future plans. Like, if you don't make it to Tokyo, are you gonna also try for Paris 2024? Uh, are you going back to the Winter Olympics or alpine skiing? What's the future plans for you?
So honestly, I feel like if I don't make it to the Olympics, I do definitely want to try to run a faster marathon. I think last time when I ran the 2:36, I felt like there was more in me. I want to try to make it you know, get in the 2:30s. I want to make that a possibility, and you know, maybe farther. So that's my goal for now. So if that doesn't happen, I think I'll run a Chicago Marathon again, and then hopefully Beirut Marathon. I'll go there. I can't miss that one. Um, so
Definitely.
so that's my goal for now. I think I just want to try to keep improving myself. I definitely have not thought about the next Olympics. It feels like too far from now to think that far.
3 years this time, not 4 years as
That's
usual.
Yes, but I'm keeping things. Yeah, so I think if I don't make it, I will definitely continue improving on my marathon time, and then trying to keep representing Lebanon and everyone in Lebanon that supports me. So that's my goal.
Thank you, Shireen, and I hope you're gonna be able to push these boundaries as you always did.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for being the first guest of the Inspirationals. And hopefully, we'll see more athletes and more people in the sports industry who have inspiring stories on this show. And I'm proud to have you like my first guest, especially that you're also from Lebanon and you're winter and from the few winter and summer Olympic athletes, because it's very rare. So thank you so much for being there, and good luck in your journey, Shireen.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me and for always being so supportive of me. And you're always there at races, taking pictures of us. So really, really appreciate everything you've done, and good luck with this. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Ciao.